Morning, everybody, and welcome to another Business Spotlight interview. Well, it's not quite a Business Spotlight interview. We've got a very interesting gentleman with us today. We've got Imran from the Bipolar Lift organisation. So, tell us about the organisation, Imran. Let's start there.
Okay, so the Bipolar Lift is a not-for-profit community organization, community interest company, and we provide support and help to people that are living with bipolar disorder and also their friends and family, because sometimes, in fact, a lot of the times, the friends and family are affected more so than the actual individual. So we provide one-to-one support, group support sessions, help with their benefits, welfare, debt problems, helping them get their driving licenses back, and we get them out of isolation, help them out and make friends and take them out on trips and things like that.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's just start and educate people what bipolar is.
So bipolar is an extreme mood condition where you have extreme highs and extreme lows. And we're not talking about, the weather being a little bit extreme in terms of high and low and that kind of thing. We're talking about extreme highs where you can kind of lose touch with reality when you're so high and go into psychosis, which is it's a serious mental health condition. They call it severe mental impairment. And basically you can go very high and lose touch with reality, or you can go very low and go to a point where you're suicidal and things like that. There are 1.3 million people in the UK that have bipolar disorder that have been diagnosed. There's probably a lot more that haven't been diagnosed yet and are still waiting for their diagnosis.
Okay, that's really quite enlightening. That I mean, sort of. So, what kind of support do these people need?
Well, first and foremost, they need help. And I mean, there's a lot of stigma associated with bipolar. I mean, they say that with bipolar disorder, you're likely to take your own life. You're likely to cheat on your partner. You're likely to take drugs and alcohol and go on spending sprees and things like that. So the associations with bipolar aren't great. So people tend to kind of shy away from it. So they move away from their friends and family and kind of lose touch with everybody and become isolated. So the first thing that we do is bring them back into society and help them make friends and get them to understand their illness better so they can manage it better. So they're not alone, and we help them with all of the things that are associated with the illness, which is first and foremost, you tend to not be able to work sometimes, most of the cases. So we help them with finding them employment or helping them with benefits and welfare support, with PIP support, for example, and all of those things that are required and are critically important for a bipolar sufferer to get help with before they have another episode, because these are things that could trigger off another episode if we don't manage their debts, for example. That pressure could give them a high chance of having another episode. So things like this are very important that we do.
This is really interesting because just to get this straight, I mean, sort of, so it's a mental illness, and this is huge on the agenda in businesses at this, but well, should be and is. So it's a mental illness, but it's not hereditary. You can just get it.
You can get it through genetics. It's one of the only conditions that can be passed through generations. And it's the only one that can do that. Most of the time it's triggered off by an incident, a traumatic incident that might happen in their lifetime. And that could cause the bipolar to show itself. So there's a number of different ways it can kind of happen to somebody. Somebody could have bipolar and then live their life normally without any episodes because they've not had any in that triggers them off. And others, it triggers them off quite frequently. Some people, when they have their high episodes, go extremely high, go into psychosis where they're not in touch with reality, they're delusional, and that's the time when they end up in hospital and they're hospitalized because of that.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So, I mean, just going into this a bit further, because obviously we need to educate people on this. And so, the symptoms of bipolar, if you don't have or don't understand it, what are the symptoms so people can actually understand to a certain extent what we're looking for and what people are looking for inside themselves?
Well, first and foremost, it's the extreme mood swings, and it's not one morning you wake up high and one evening you wake up, go to sleep low. It's a period of high or period of low. So, for example, you could be extremely high for a period of maybe 2 or 3 weeks or a few months at a time, or you could be low for a few months at a time. So it's not like a sudden switch. And those lows can be, crippling lows. They're not just where you're feeling a little bit low and depressed. They are really, where you're feeling absolutely worthless and suicidal and things like that. And the extreme highs are also you're high for a matter of weeks or months. Sometimes you have people that can operate very, um, do lots and lots of work. You might come across people that are bipolar that are very energetic. They have lots of energy and they can do lots and lots of work and exciting stuff and be very creative, because that's one of the signs of bipolar, that they can actually function very effectively when they're high. And these are the same people that would crash and then not be able to do anything for weeks or months or anything. And they normally the kind of symptoms that you need to look out for. The other things are, the rapid speech, for example. They might start speaking and jump from one point to another without really thinking about it, going from one point to the next, and kind of not being able to engage with people the way most people can, because sometimes they can mask it very well. So, for example, they might be extremely high or extremely low, but to kind of be okay in society, they'll mask it and pretend they're happy and they're smiling, but really they could be incredibly depressed or, feeling very, very worthless. It's one of these conditions that is very difficult to diagnose. For example, the average time it takes for somebody to get diagnosed with bipolar disorder is 9.5 years, which is a very, very long time. Doctors and specialists normally diagnose a bipolar person with depression, because they're the sort of signs that normally appear beforehand. So you could find that normally a person with bipolar disorder has been on antidepressant tablets for maybe years and years and years. I myself was on antidepressants for 7 years before they diagnosed me with bipolar, only because I had an episode.
Okay, so you got involved and set up this organisation because of your journey. Would you
Yeah,
like just to describe your journey to us, Imran?
sure. So my background is in further education. I used to run colleges in Birmingham, and I used to also secure government funding for training providers and also smaller colleges. And then one day I had an episode, and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2016, and DVLA took away my driving license immediately. And because of that, I lost my company car, then I lost my job, and then everything just spiraled out of control. My debts went up to 300,000 pounds. It just went crazy, and I didn't have a clue about what to do. I went around looking for help, and I couldn't find anything. So in 2019, I set up the Bipolar Lift to provide and deliver all of the services I was looking for at the time. So help with PIP, welfare benefits, and all of the things that I talked about earlier, but also getting in touch with creditors and explaining the fact that I have bipolar disorder and I'm not going to be able to pay that money back now, and making arrangements with them and things like that. Things like, so anything that I needed help with, that's what the Bipolar Lift provides now.
Okay, lovely. Thanks very much for sharing that. So, so what does the future look like, and what are the challenges moving forwards?
The future is bleak in terms of the amount of people coming forward, but it's bright in terms of the amount of work that we can do for them. We're now in a position where we've got a lot of support in place. We've got an infrastructure in place. We can provide one-to-one support sessions. We can do Zoom support sessions for those with bipolar disorder. We can bring their family and friends onto the Zoom call as well, if it helps them. We have group support sessions in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire and Leicester, and Leicestershire. But we can also do group support sessions on Zoom as well. So we can kind of get involved and start discussing things and kind of hearing about what issues that they're facing, and then look at ways of dealing with them. We've got a full-time mental health social worker on board. We've got myself on board. We've got a few volunteers on board. And really, it's all about practical advice. It's not just practical help and support, rather. It's not just about a group support session where people go around the room and just introduce themselves and then go home again. this is real, what is it that you need help with? How is it going to help you? And what do we need to do to kind of make it happen for you? And that is what we focus on.
Well, thanks very much for sharing that, and thanks for educating us on this traumatic mental disease. I mean, it's absolutely it's enlightened me, to say the least. So, on a final note, where would people come to? How would they contact you if they think a relative or whatever, or themselves, or maybe having these sort of symptoms? So, how do they outreach to you, Imran?
But they reach out to us by, first of all, coming onto our website. All the information is there. It's www.bipolarlift.org. And that will give them as much information as they need to kind of get on with things. But there's also a self-referral form on there as well, so they can refer themselves onto our caseload. All of this is free for them. We're getting funding from the National Lottery to provide the service for people in Nottinghamshire, but we don't say no to anybody that comes from outside of these areas. So they can fill in the referral form, or the telephone number there as well. They can just ring us, call us, and somebody will pick up the phone and start talking to them and try and work out, a plan of action for them.
Thank you. And would it be the same sort of route for any business or business owner who'd actually like to get involved with this?
Well, we've got a course developed called Understanding Bipolar Disorder. And we developed that specifically for businesses to teach their staff about bipolar disorder. So if anybody's interested in that, it's a CPD accredited course. It's only 2 hours long, or they can have the 3-hour version, which includes understanding mental health as well. And these are courses that are available. They hardly cost anything. They're very cheap, but they're very powerful in terms of promoting it to their staff and getting them to understand what bipolar disorder is and how it affects them at work, most importantly.
And if they want to get involved financially, they would get in touch with you via the website?
Yes, please, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Imran, thanks so much for your time and sharing that enlightening discussion there. That was absolutely, we learned a lot from that. So I'd just like to say thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.